Hi everyone, and welcome to Art with Nathan. Again, this is our next episode after we've done the hatching episode. If you haven't seen that episode, please go back to our hatching episode before you watch this one. In this episode, we'll address cross-hatching. Okay, so it's the next step. Once you've mastered your hatching techniques, cross-hatching is the next tool that you're going to apply in your toolbox. So as the name states, it's very similar to hatching. Let's draw my square. And again, this is just a development in your artistic journey. It's learning to draw lines across each other. So let's say you've got a very basic hatch going on, a very uniform hatch, parallel. So that's hatching. That's really similar to how I started the last video. And I'm just going to draw another square that's identical, well, not quite identical, to that one. Again, I'm going to give it a very similar hatch, just to show you the difference between cross-hatching and hatching. Again, we've been practicing our parallel lines. We've gotten more confident with it. So again, I've graded these two squares in a similar way. They were white, and now they are another tone. Let's say it was a 0, and now it's a 5, okay, in terms of the value scale. Cross-hatching is a way to add value, to increase the value, make it darker over hatching. So if I were to cross-hatch this one, I would hatch it in the opposite direction. Okay? So this takes some dexterity again. I'm keeping my lines quite parallel and uniform. So now if we look at these two squares and we ask ourselves, what do they visually communicate? We can see that this square here, with a single hatch, is visually lighter than this square with the cross-hatching. Okay, so we see that difference. Now we can actually create a tonal value scale using cross-hatching. So if you remember, here's our bar. And we're going to go from light on this side, so there's a 0, to a 10 on that side, which is a dark. Okay, so if we were just using hatching, so it's light there. Let's say I want to combine some of the hatching techniques that I learned in my last lesson. The lines are further away as it gets lighter and closer together as it gets darker. And also I'm pressing harder to increase the thickness of the line as I get to a 10. So cross-hatching can enhance this value scale. So I'm going to cross-hatch at a 45 angle degree, make that 10 really, really dark. And as I get closer to the light, my hatch lines get further away. And so there we have a nice value scale, creating value just using hatch lines. So again, if we remember our last lesson, we had a curved object. Let me just erase these two. So the same with a curved plane. So where we have our curved plane over here, it's curving that way. Cross-hatching can enhance your hatching. So I've got a hatch, so the light is coming from the top, pressing lightly at the top, harder at the bottom. I'm going to cross-hatch where it's darker, and as I get closer to the top, my hatch lines increase in frequency further apart, and I press lighter. Okay. So we're combining everything we've learned about hatching into cross-hatching. So we're taking these parallel lines and we're putting them over each other. So I just want to show you how that works with a sphere. So you've got your circle. Draw lots of lines. Okay, remember your sketch lines. I'm going to create tone. Again, cross-hatching can be topographical, the same as hatching. Your light's coming from that side. So over here is my brightest. I'm going to use my curved lines to describe the nature, the volume of the sphere. I'm going to strengthen them where it's closer, where it's darker. Again, classic hatching technique. And then where it's really dark, I'm going to cross-hatch, keeping my curved lines to describe the volume, but in a different direction. Okay. So as you can see, it's a really effective way to communicate something visually in a short amount of time. And also what I really like about it is it's undeniably a drawing. So when you look at it, you're not confusing it with anything photographic. When you see a crosshatch drawing, it isn't saying it's anything else other than a drawing. And drawings are wonderful. Drawings are wonderful. Drawings shouldn't look like photographs. Unless you choose to do that, that's fine. So there are no real rules on how you crosshatch. Everyone moves differently, everyone thinks differently, everyone sees differently. So there are different ways in which you can apply the cross-hatching technique. So I'm going to draw a couple circles. Okay. Well, I'm trying to keep them round. So if you feel, and this really comes down to style, that you don't want to do longer lines like I have, but you prefer to do short lines. So all these lines are, again, still parallel to each other. This is still hatching. And as I get to the darker side, I create more lines closer to each other. And I'm pressing harder, and they're in frequency. And now I'm going to crosshatch, just using the same shorter line technique. So this is also crosshatching. But again, I'm not applying the topographical lines that curve around, that describe the object. This is really more toning, but yet it still portrays the object as three-dimensional. Okay. So let's say the light's coming from the top. And I've decided I want to use topographical lines to draw it in this direction. But for the opposite direction, I don't want to draw topographical lines. I feel like I've described the roundness of the object. I want to go back to this technique. So now I'm combining that hatching technique with topographical lines. So what's really interesting about combining these two things, which we'll do a bit more next week, is that you get the sense that the object is round, but also the gradient of tone. Now you can do that with topographical lines as well. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, so topographical lines, but you're putting emphasis on the one side and it gets lighter. We can do that going the opposite way. Further apart. Okay. Now, just before we finish, I want to talk about flat black. So if you remember when I did the scale, the 10 was a flat black. And one of the things in drawing, when you do, let's say you have a dark pencil and you see a shadow is completely black, your reference, whether it's life or a photograph, and you're going to try get a 6B or an 8B pencil, the darkest pencil you can find, or the ink, and you're just going to color it in absolutely flat black. Now, more often than not, that is a mistake. What I would do is I'd use hatching. Hatching is a great way to create the illusion that something is completely dark, but it still has a sense of depth. Okay, this is why I prefer hatching. Hatching over shading. So you don't have to cross-hatch. You can cross-hatch in multiple directions to create your black surface. So I've gone 45 there, 45 there. Now I'm going to go left and right. I suppose a whiteboard marker isn't the best thing to use to demonstrate this, but if you do this with a pencil, you'll see you'll create a lovely, beautiful satiny black. It still communicates darkness, but it has a depth to it without being too flat and nullifying the illusion of three-dimensionality in your drawing. So thanks so much for watching. That's it for today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.